We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
I got this feeling.
Okay, so welcome to LA Talk Live. We are the Del and Debi show. Del and Debi's mind, body, soul, and everything in between. And I am Debi Jones, a certified relationship and coach. And by my side here is
Debbie Carlin Boyle, and I am a certified fitness instructor, a personal trainer, and wellness coach. And we'd like to welcome you today to our show, and we're very, 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 very excited about our guest today. Okay, so first off, I want to ask you if you want to call in. Our number is 323-473-3100 if you have a question for our wonderful guest. And now I'm going to give you my Oprah moment here, my Oprah and Gayle King moment, if you will. I am so lucky and privileged to have on the show today my best friends. And my best friend in the whole world, Carolyn Cozens, right here, and
Hi,
her
Deb.
family, Kevin and Skylar. Welcome to the show.
That's a lot of pressure.
It is. I'm going to
Thank you
start
for
now.
having us.
I'm gonna
You're not my best friends, but nothing wrong with you. That's okay.
She's
But
my
you
Gayle
are.
King.
But you are my
I'm
friends.
Oprah.
So, yes, it's lovely to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming.
We have to start off with why you guys are here. And so I want to have you tell us how your company, Classical Progression, got started. But first, I want to hear how you and Kevin actually met and go back to the beginnings, if you don't mind.
Okay, well, I guess I'll tackle that one. 35 years ago,
Wow.
Kevin and I met at a
Kindergarten.
architecture school. I wish I could say kindergarten, but it was actually college. We met at a private architecture school in Los Angeles called SciArc, and we worked on projects together and other such things, and fell in love, and I ended up going into other forms of design, fashion, and then pursuing interior design. Kevin went on to become the architect. And
what
that's
brought
how we
you,
met.
because obviously your accent is not, you're not American, so you came from,
I'm Australian originally.
yeah. And how old were you when you came over here?
I was 15, so I finished high school in Los Angeles, met Kevin at 19, and that was it.
That was it.
The design world began.
Yeah. Lots of things were born.
Lots of things.
Love was born. Marriage was born.
Exactly.
2 beautiful children. Yes, Skylar was born.
We did get married 4 years later, and 5 years after that, we had Skylar.
Oh,
That's right.
beautiful.
That's
And
So should we get Kevin's version now?
right.
Yeah, so I was online and I was looking for a girlfriend. No, yeah, we met in architecture school, 1980. I had tried many different things and didn't do very well at them, and I found architecture and absolutely loved it. Did not know that I was going to be also finding the love of my life. There were basically 2 hot girls there, and I ended up with one of them. Filled in a sea of guys.
Yeah.
And 5 years later, I graduated. Carolyn had, like she said, taken off and kind of done other things, fashion design and some different things. And luckily, my sister had bought a house in Beverly Hills in the Flats, and she asked me to redesign it. So I was in my mid-20s, and I got this great job. And she came back to me after I completed the plans and said, there's no builder on the planet who can read your plans. So either redesign them and get it so anybody could build them, or build it yourself. And I think she kind of said that out of desperation. Little did she know, I got my contractor's license and I built it myself.
Oh, fabulous. And that was your first project?
My first
Straight
project.
out of college?
Yep.
Well, before we go on to more projects, I'm interested to find out what was special about Kevin out of a sea of men that you made you
Yeah.
choose him.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Well,
He wore gold
Well,
chains.
Yeah, I
around
don't think
his
we'll.
neck.
Oh, well, that's very attractive. Well, back then, maybe.
You know what? I'll tell you what it was. He was an artist, because a lot of architecture is very conventional. And this was actually a very interesting architecture school we went to, and it was kind of funky and, had a different edge to it. But Kevin in particular, and what really drew me to him was his artistry. He just had vision and taste, and it really carried into the art form and the architecture, and it was really
Wow,
interesting.
back
and
then
the passion.
you told me it was my body.
That came later.
You know what?
There you go.
Artistic talent to me is one of the sexiest things on
Yeah,
earth.
it
I mean,
was.
that's why
I mean,
women fall
yeah.
in love with rock
There's a
stars.
word for it now. It's called metro. But that word wasn't around back then. But it was very interesting.
Yeah, that's fabulous. So so you did your first house for your sister, you said?
For my sister.
So she's
Okay.
responsible for you actually getting your contractor's
Launching.
license. I don't think I knew that actually.
Yes.
So she did. And so then
Yeah.
what happened from there? How did that grow from there?
Well, we had some interesting things on that first house.
It's a learning process, right?
Definitely
Yes.
a learning process.
What were the interesting things?
Well, I'd say the most interesting was right when the house was nearly completed and we were taking the scaffolding down and you could pretty much see the house for the first time. A woman pulled up in a Rolls Royce in the driveway. And I looked outside and I got very excited and she comes running in. Who designed this house? Who designed this house? And I ran downstairs and she said, "You should be ashamed of yourself. This house has no business being in Beverly Hills. It should be at the beach." And I went home with my tail between my legs. And about a week later, I literally look out again and I see this lady pull up in the driveway in a Jaguar. And I hide in the closet. Literally. And she came in while I was hiding and asked for me, and they gave her my phone number. She ended up calling me later, and she loved the house, and she ended up hiring me to do my second house.
Oh, that's so
At the
funny.
beach.
Not at the beach.
Yeah, and I was
In-
just going to say, did she
in-
call you when you were in the closet? That would have been really embarrassing.
It was actually in Holmby Hills.
Yeah.
So it's very
great.
interesting the way people perceive the same thing so differently.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, what?
True. Art's like that.
Just out of curiosity, what were the elements of the house that she felt did not fit in Beverly Hills?
It was modern.
Mm-hmm.
It was very modern. 35 years ago, for 30 odd years ago, for what was going on in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So it was now they're all over the place.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it was definitely unusual. It fit in the culture and architecturally and artistically. But I think that was probably
a little much for her
yes,
to take on board.
exactly. Well,
Now,
which is taste.
Yeah.
It is.
And style that evolves. I mean, the more you
Right.
see something like that, the more it becomes conventional and, or rather, more
Familiar.
And
familiar.
also personal, and we're going
It
to
is.
get into that
Yes,
later on about
yes.
how you live in your environment and what makes you feel good and how important that is to be in touch with how you feel in what you're living in and what you create for yourself.
Do you think
we're
you were
definitely
a
gonna
little
go there.
before your time in what you created? Was modern? I can't remember in the early
there was-
'80s. It was a little.
It's the school that we went to, SciArc, was a very progressive school.
Oh, no wonder.
And
Extremely.
very, very out of the box. So they really taught you how to push the envelope and how to think out of the box.
Oh, I love
Which
that.
is so wonderful because
Exactly.
it's become nothing but a positive benefit towards your business now
Right.
as your family business.
Well, it's an art form, and I mean, I went to art school myself. I mean, if anything you need is to be encouraged to sort of go outside of the lines and really, really explore. Because sometimes when you get out into the real world, you have to sort of pull it back a little. So at least in the school, they support you in just going after something really unique.
They do. They really encourage, and we can bring that in with Skylar because she was an architecture major at college.
And a lot
Really?
later, so things that were different,
Wow.
like fast forward 28 years or
Yeah, like
whatever
even
it was.
my first year in school, it was very heavily focused on hand drawing, because during that time CAD wasn't as popular and computer graphics weren't as, popular, and this wasn't about 9-10 years ago. And now, and then by like my senior year of college, every one of our classes was entirely computer generated
Wow.
drawings.
Must be so much easier now for an architect with computers or
I know
not.
we've talked about it, Kevin, a little bit. Yeah.
It's easier. It's easier in a sense, but I still believe that that sometimes the computer drives the design,
Oh, wow.
and I don't like that. So
No,
I,
but you
I'm
want your creative
constantly
energy.
going back to sketching.
And organic,
And
organic
organic
design.
And I bet your
shapes and
clients like
forms.
that too. So
Yeah.
everything's not so like computer generated, you know. Like,
Well, especially with your style as well. I would love to get, I mean, what I see as your style now. I mean, I visited your house, gosh, it was many years ago. When did you build your house in Ramirez?
which one?
We started 20 years ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it was
and
around-
It was definitely
yeah.
an evolution.
We're almost done.
Of
It
time.
took well, everything it's never ending, and it took almost 10 years
It
to get
did.
it to where you wanted it to be.
Yes.
And you guys are still, you're always doing.
Well, we call it
things.
the case study house
Yeah.
because
Oh yeah,
there was
good one.
the innovation of that house was something that progressed organically from the modern to the classical
Exactly.
and everything
Yeah.
everything in between, and collecting. You know, we were looking for certain objects it took 5 years to find.
Wow. Can
So-
you give us some
Yeah,
examples of
yeah,
that? Because I
let's-
just
we
wanted,
would-
the house is like nothing you've ever seen. It is the most beautiful, stunning coming together of modern and vintage and
thank you.
And it's got a name, Chateau Zoo. Okay, let's start with the name, and then if we could talk about the evolution of the house
and some of the elements and where they came from.
Yes.
Well, let's talk. Well, the name of the company, first of all, is Classical Progression.
Right.
So
talk about-
it's
So in architecture school, I remember failing a couple of projects because I would introduce diabolically opposed things to each other, old and new, round and square, things that a lot of more conventional designers and architects wouldn't put together, and I was kind of held
Unconventional.
accountable for it. And so then when I went out on my own, of course I could do what I want, and I loved the kind of juxtaposition of these things thrown at each other, and I think they help make each other look better.
Yeah.
Carolyn came from a very classical kind of life with classical music and kind of her upbringing in Melbourne, Australia, and my parents were pretty classical as well, so that was always kind of in our souls. And then we went to this architecture school that basically taught you that everything old is behind you and you really need to look to the future and be progressive and kind of rethink everything. So the conflict in me kind of threw those two things together. And we bought a piece of property in Malibu that was very rustic and kind of charming. And we wanted to put a house there, and of course we'd put a modern house there, but it just didn't feel right. We had just come back from my first time in Europe, and we were in the south of France and kind of driving around, and we stumbled on all these old stone farmhouses and just these amazing buildings that we flipped over. And the idea came to kind of take that style and make it progressive. And we pretty much determined that the only way to do that would be to build with old pieces.
Yeah.
And that there's so much, unfortunately, being thrown away in this world, and trash is
Somebody else's
is
treasure.
a giant problem. Maybe we can salvage pieces from old buildings and utilize them in a progressive way in new buildings.
Yeah.
And we started to do it with our own house. Few people liked it, wanted to hire us, and then asked what we call it. So we came up with the name Classical Progression.
Beautiful. I
love
it.
it.
I mean, it really is the most stunning house. I mean, it's so unique, and it definitely, even though it has some classical elements, it's certainly a contemporary home.
Yeah, there's concrete walls,
Yes,
there's concrete
yes.
floors. The shapes are quite organic,
Yeah.
fanning out. Some of the rooms, actually many of the rooms are not straight and, rectilinear angles. So the rooms are set up, in fan-shaped and different angles.
Yeah.
And
And also, I mean, how did it feel growing up in that house, Skylar?
Well, and going through
Well,
the
she
going
grew up
through the
during-
process.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
let's talk about that, Skylar, a little bit, because you were really young
Well,
when it started. I
They used to
watched
drag
this.
me to antique stores, swap meets, garage sales, literally every weekend. And I thought I wanted nothing to do with design and build ever because I had such
It was
terrible
grueling.
memories
Yeah.
of being woken up at 6 a.m, dragged to these stores. We'd be on vacation somewhere and they'd wake us up and take us to these garage sales.
sales.
And my sister and I would be like, this is trash. This is trash. Now I have such a different respect and appreciation of all of this stuff. I still don't go to garage sales, but I appreciate it all a lot more.
You
The
also-
old and the new, you
Yes.
appreciate. Yeah.
You also grew up under construction for
Yeah,
many
tell
years,
me about the
watching
build.
a house
Yeah.
put to. We lived through construction
Well,
for many years.
my favorite was on like Fridays. I'd be like, Dad, please don't let me like miss school today, and I would get to go to work with him. And I think I would go more than Chelsea even. I used to like love going and following him around the job sites. But then when I got to college, I was like, oh, I'm going to be a lawyer or something, nothing related to design.
So this really resonated with you, but you didn't really
Nope.
realize
I
it.
don't think I
So
realized it
all
at
of a sudden,
all.
and I know your parents were sideswiped when you started taking art.
Completely.
Yeah, because I remember that. And so what was it? What was it that compelled you suddenly?
So someone asked me that recently, and I was really miserable in all my classes. And I found an urban studies class that I really loved, and the professor.
Where'd you go to school, Sky? Tell everybody where you went.
I went to Barnard College, which is part of Columbia in New York.
Right.
But it's like this really small all-girls division of it. And so I started like taking poli-sci and like economics sort of classes, and I found them all very boring and a lot of studying for finals, and I really didn't enjoy it, and a lot of reading, all things I didn't enjoy. So I found this urban studies class that looked really interesting. It was called Making the Metropolis. And I was like, perfect. I'm in New York right now. We had like every other week we got to tour the city basically to learn for this class. And I loved it. And my professor was also an architecture professor. So I got close with him and he's like, you should take an architecture class. I was like, okay, why not? So I signed up for one of the architecture studios. Absolutely loved it. I remember calling my dad. I was like, so I think I'm going to take an architecture class. And he's like, what? He's like, I don't think I'm going to major in it. I'm just going to take a class. And then after I took that first class, I loved it. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is
when
what I
she
want to
called
do.
and said, I'm declaring architecture my major. It was
But
quite
even
epic.
while I was
And-
studying, I never was like, oh, I'm going to be an architect or I'm going to work with my parents. Like I had internships in fashion and graphic
Right.
design and kind of design related fields without being architecture focused. And then it wasn't even until my second job after college when I started realizing that I loved the design aspect of all of it the most.
It's kind of like your dad discovering when he was in that you were saying in the beginning that you couldn't find what you were good at or what you resonated with you, what
Right.
you wanted to do, and then all of a sudden it hit you. The same kind of thing happened to you, Skylar.
Yeah.
It seems like, and that's, a lot of us do that.
Right.
We go different paths and then something's got to hit us over the head, and what we do with it is, how successful we ultimately are in
Right.
that. And so you are now doing something that has almost made you are invaluable to the company right now, which is fantastic.
Well, let's talk about that.
So let's talk about what your titles are within the company, and then let's talk about what your job, what the description of what your jobs are, what you do.
Well, I used to be president. Now I'm flunky.
Uh-oh,
I
Go
used
ahead,
to-
Skylar.
I used to give
CEO.
the orders. Now I take the orders.
No, the person who gives the person who is the boss in our company is the person who writes the checks, because that's everybody listens to that person, and I've become that person, so everybody listens to me more than anybody else.
Well, it may not be the
when-
person who actually
well-
writes, but the person who has the bank account that the check gets written from.
When
right?
Skylar started, and here she is, she's controlling and kind of manipulating 50 guys, okay,
Yeah.
men.
And she's a tiny little
20
thing
She
for
was
those of you
25
who-
years old, and
Yeah.
I thought to myself, there's only one way that these guys are going to respect her, and that is if she schedules them and she pays them.
That's right.
So from day one, she started scheduling them and paying them.
Wow.
Smart.
And they respect her, and they love her, which is really funny.
Yeah,
Um,
she
And that's how you get a good job done. Really, seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
With respect and love.
For some reason, this is so reminding me a little bit of like the Trump organization.
Oh. Okay.
You know what's really sad about that? Sometimes my wife does call me the Donald when I say
I
something.
do.
When I say
I
something
do.
stupid, she calls me the Donald.
But my dad has a lot of
Good.
natural hair that Donald wishes he had.
Well, there's an element of that that's a compliment.
Yes, there was absolutely. Just the trust that he puts in you, Skylar. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so funny because I was working at this big real estate development company running like these huge apartment buildings, and I was miserable. And I would come home crying every day and was stressed out. And I finally convinced my boss at the time to let me hire my dad as a consultant. So we were kind of working together in an element when I was there, but it was a very challenging position for me to be in just because I didn't have enough experience back then. Like now, if I had the job, I would not feel that way. It was an amazing company, but it was very hard for me. So
But they must
When I
have loved you
quit-
to take
Oh,
your recommendation to hire your dad.
Well, and the owner was so upset when Skylar left.
Yeah.
He's a brilliant guy, but partly because he's so brilliant, he really needs to make every decision himself.
Oh.
So he has all these people working for him, but he's really not letting them do what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of, you shoot yourself in the foot. You just can't get anything done. So
Absolutely.
everything is twice as long as it should be and costs twice as much.
So anyways,
So
I
she left.
quit. So I quit. It was just very hard for me. And I quit and I sat on my couch for about 3 weeks. And every day my mom would call me, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm taking 3 dance classes in a row." I was like the happiest person ever, but I wasn't working. And finally, after about 3.5 weeks, my dad calls me. I was like, "I'm not going to have a daughter who just graduated from Barnard, has all of these like degrees and, things. Come work with me." And this was in like
In the
June.
interim.
He said, "Come work with me until December. If you hate it, you can quit. I don't care. But just work with me till December."
How long
And
ago was
then
that?
3.5 years ago.
Yeah. Well, a lot of Decembers have passed.
Yeah.
You're
So
We-
then we'll see what I don't
We've
know. This
probably
December
done
I might.
25 projects, 35
30.
projects since then.
Wow. Wow.
Now, I want to get back for a second to the type of projects you do. Are they all that sort of element that you have in the home that I saw, the mixture of the classical and the modern? Or do some people just say, I want strictly modern?
I would say that's kind of the soul of our company, but not everybody wants, not everybody is comfortable in that environment. And what we really try and do is design for our clients. Don't really believe in forcing people to live in what we think they should live in. We try and extract from them what their lifestyle is all about, what their interests are, the way they want to live, and then we design for that. But if somebody, let's say, has a gravity towards mid-century modern, very streamlined, flat roofs, one story, we still might introduce some old pieces. We might introduce old floors, a recycled front door, vintage light fixtures. You never know. So that our concept is still there.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
like right now we're working on like a Spanish style home, and it's very easy in LA to do this traditional California Spanish style home, but we kind of take it to the next level and modernize in certain elements and maybe put in funkier windows and doors and small elements that are just kind of special and unique, so it doesn't look like every other Spanish style house you're walking into in the Beverly Hills area.
And I bet at this point your clients are hiring you for your input into not making it the quote unquote normal,
Yeah.
the way you would think it should be.
Yeah, to put that
and
twist on
introducing
it.
your specialty into it.
So I heard you say, Skylar, that a lot of the stuff is bought from, flea markets and garage sales and things. Are there like salvage companies you work with, or how do you? Because I remember you telling me a funny story about, I think in your house in Malibu, the balcony was from somebody's house.
Danny Thomas's
Danny
house.
Thomas, yeah.
I would drive around as I was just doing my thing and see a fence go up on a construction project, and I'd walk in, look around, and kind of be nosy. And if I saw interesting pieces, I would say to the contractor, I want to buy everything you're getting rid of. And sometimes they would just say, well, take it, because then I don't have to throw it away.
Yeah.
And sometimes they would want a small amount of money for it. This particular case, the person who bought Danny Thomas's house said, just make a donation to the St. Jude Foundation,
Oh, how wonderful.
because Danny Thomas started the
Yeah.
St.
St.
Jude Foundation.
Yeah, which is a great foundation, by
Yes,
the way.
incredible.
And we took so much stuff out of that house. It was a big, giant Truesdale house, and
It was one of the days that I didn't have to go to school.
And
We
so you
found
were
it,
part
I
of
swear.
it.
I was
Yeah.
like, I must have been 8.
I think I remember the delivery, and it kind of laid down in your driveway or your front lawn for a while.
We had
off to the
we
side.
had boat trusses, and the people think
Yeah.
we were building a massive bridge,
Yeah.
but they're actually in the ceiling. We collected a lot of materials before we even started the building,
Yeah.
because the process took so long.
Well, didn't
So
you?
there were a lot of materials sitting there.
Yeah, and wasn't your? We have to talk about your garage. Does that still exist? And is it still full of vintage cars? Kevin's speechless. He doesn't want to talk about this.
Talk about.
yeah, it's kind of a passion.
Yes. I know. Well,
Buying
again,
and
it
selling.
feeds into that whole, respecting the past and vintage. And so just name a few of the cars you have. I've seen you driving around town.
When Carolyn was 19, she was driving a 1961 Jaguar Mark II 3.8 sedan that had a leaky steering box, and she had to put oil in it every morning because overnight all the steering fluid would leak out, and they didn't make rebuild steering boxes for it back then.
I drove that to design school downtown every day,
With
and had to
probably
carry
cringing,
gallons
right?
of oil and water.
Wow.
And at the same time, I had the same car in a two-door convertible, a 61 E-Type Roadster, which we still have.
Incredible.
Wow.
And I know you have an old Citroen. Do you still have
No
that?
more old. Have had a lot of Citroens, but don't have
Did
any now.
Did it collapse finally?
No, those cars go forever. Those cars
Yeah.
are brilliant.
Great. Wonderful.
I want to get into a little bit about your titles in the company. We were talking about it earlier, but we got kind of cut off and sidetracked a little bit. Like what each role that you play, who's more design interior, and just getting to the essence of what the client wants and how you guys make that happen individually with each one of your talents, because each of you obviously bring your talent to the table, which creates the bigger picture. So
titles are hard.
but you have them
We
on your
don't.
website, right? You have
Yeah, I
it.
don't even know what's
Oh,
on there.
okay.
We do that for formality.
Oh,
I think
okay.
it's easier to describe kind of our roles.
Yeah, I think your roles. That's what I
Than
mean.
anything.
Yes.
So my mom is interiors all the way. She's amazing. She can take colors and know what's going to be popular 4 years down the line.
It's my fashion background.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. You're
just
she's so good with that.
Just
She helped me
before
design
this,
something.
Yeah. Just before this, we were just picking up bedding for a master bed, and we're putting it all together. And she is kind of the interior expert, I would say, of us.
I mean, we do things for our clients, like they're going to move. We had a client who lived in New York, was building his house in Malibu, had lived in the house in Malibu, but then moved out of it to redo it. And he wasn't here a lot during the process. We really took over and took care of it. But he called and said, okay, I'm moving back next week. We put bedding on the sheets. We put dishes in the cabinets.
We got him
even got
shampoo and
shampoo
conditioner and a
we-
toothbrush.
So you're real full service.
He walked into a lifestyle.
Yes.
Of,
And you create that.
And that's, between all of us, we are full service. I am a real estate agent. So we will do the real estate transaction, find the property or find the lot, and then do all of the work,
Designs,
furnish it. So
yeah.
we're kind of soup to
that's-
nuts.
You're a one-stop shop.
We are
Is
a
what you
one-stop
are.
Now,
shop.
the interesting thing about that New York client that she didn't say is when he left the house for us to do the job, he said he was going to have it all cleaned out and ready to go. And we got there Monday morning, and his fish tank was still there with fish in the
And
aquarium.
his flip-flops were
His
by the
shoes
front
were
door.
under the. There was dog food in the dog bowl, and we called him up and we said, "What's up?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm good. Just go ahead and do what you have to do."
But then a year later, he goes, "Where was that $2,500 bicycle I left?" We're like, no idea what happened.
Yeah, and he said, "What happened to my dog? I haven't seen my dog."
I
in a year."
know.
What happened to my fish?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my role. Skylar covers everything.
Talk
Yeah.
into the mic so I can hear you.
Skylar has many roles.
Yeah, so my dad does mainly the architectural design, and he's a general contractor. And so he kind of oversees everything. He'll do the initial design drawings, meeting with the clients, making sure everybody's happy and into it. Is that a cue?
Yeah,
Yes,
we're going to
that's
go
like
to
you.
commercial.
I've always wanted
We
one
take
of
a
those cues. I
break,
feel like
yes.
I'm giving a speech at the end.
Yeah, there you go. But I want you to hold the thought, Skylar, because we're going to go take a quick break.
And we'll
a quick
come back
break. We'll
right
be right
back
back.
to you.
We'll go right back to where we were, and then we'll continue the conversation. Thanks, guys. We'll be right
And
back.
anyone that's listening and would like to ask a question, please call us at 323-473-3100.
And we'll be right back. Don't go away.
We know there are many choices of internet radio, and the staff and hosts of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Elena inviting you to join me every Wednesday at noon for Elena's Beauty Talk and more, exclusively on LA Talk Live. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Starlet Quarles, and I'm inviting you to join us every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People. Join us as we discuss the topics that are relevant to today's generational leaders. So don't forget to tune in to The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People, every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. right here on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, and welcome back to Del and Debbie's Mind, Body, Soul. And we have the wonderful Cozens family here today with us, sharing about their company, their family company, architectural. Sorry, what am I?
Classical.
Classical Progression is the name of their architectural company.
And I have to say, we don't have the entire family. We're missing one. We're missing your daughter, Chelsea, so we don't want to just snuff her.
That's right.
And also, Skylar's husband, Zach, isn't here either.
Wonderful. Now, do they
So
all?
they're-
But they don't work in the company. with you.
No.
So this
So
is
that's
the
why this is
family.
all about the family
Yeah.
part of
They
it.
support us.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Wonderful.
They hear a lot.
So you were going through what your different roles are, and you said that your mum is more of the interior design and all of that aspect, and your father was more in charge of the whole project and the architectural side of it. And how does it, I'm just wondering the dynamic, you having also sort of graduated as an architect, do you ever sort of like disagree with any of your father's plans?
Oh, here we go.
Oh, yeah. So the other day, so we signed a new client, a beautiful home. We're remodeling, adding a second story. A lot of our clients these days, we've been noticing, because real estate's just so expensive right now. a lot of clients are wanting to add on or remodel their existing home, opposed to selling their house, finding a new house. All of a sudden, their taxes are going to be their property taxes are so much more, and things like that. So this is a situation we're adding on a second story and remodeling the first floor, and my dad, for about a week, I'm bugging my dad every day. Dad, how are the plans going? How are the plans going? Every day, don't worry, I'm working on them. Don't worry, I'm working on them. I don't look at the plans for the whole week. I should have, but I didn't look at the plans for the whole week. So finally, we have a meeting with a client scheduled, and 2 days before the meeting, I called my dad. I said, so how's it going? He goes, good. I think I finished the first floor. So I go, okay, let me look at it. So I open up the plan. I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense there, and I wouldn't do it that way. And he's like, fine. So we ended up screen sharing our computers and working for like 4 or 5 hours. Like, both of us were working on it, bouncing ideas back and forth between each other.
Wow.
And it turned out, I think it's really cool floor plan.
So
And
it's good
how
that
do
you
you
can
feel, Kevin?
collaborate. It's good that you can collaborate and not, like, kill each other.
It's
and
different.
yell
He
and-
has so much more experience, obviously.
Good, and you
but,
respect
I
that.
really don't have experience on the architecture front like my dad does. But I get to go into a lot of homes, a lot of modern homes, because that's where I know a lot of people living right now. And so it's interesting and cool to see, different perspectives on how you can live.
Right. I like that when you say that, because you're a millennial generation, which is a different generation than us, and you are going into different, which, I mean, I know your parents stay very, very contemporary, to what's going on, and very, you've got your finger on the pulse.
Yeah, in
big
real
time.
estate,
Yeah.
I'm constantly,
Right.
they're constantly saying, so if what do we need an extra bathroom? Should we do the maid's room? How's this? I'm constantly a reference to the sales market at the end of the day as to what people today
Want.
are looking for and how they want to live. Twofold, what will sell and how people today are liking to live
I love
in
that.
their homes.
So you guys bring so much to it. I mean, Skylar's youth, your real estate expertise, design.
I'm just going to say,
His
Kevin's
time,
very
because these
quiet right
guys
now.
do all the work and you play golf.
So I want to hear from Kevin. How does it feel to have your daughter telling you what it should look like?
So I'm very much about the concept behind the design. It doesn't matter for me if the bathroom's going to get bigger or smaller or over there or over here. Those things don't matter to me as long as every line that we put down on a piece of paper is going towards that concept. And that's why I can sit back and not mind and be happy to work things out along the way, as long as I know that we're not, hindering this overall concept. And when I say a concept, we sit down with a client when we first get our project and we ask for 2 lists. One is a pragmatic functional list. It's how many pairs of shoes you need to store. You collect eyeglasses, cars, you're a gourmet cook, all of the things that you need if we're doing a home, all of the things that you need in your home that are going to satisfy your pragmatic needs. And then we ask for another list, which is much more subjective. How do you want to feel when you pull up in your driveway and you look at your house? How do you want people to feel when they drive by the street and look at your house? How do you want people to feel when you're sitting in your dining room? How do you want to use your house? I mean, there's just so many things. And then we try and delve into what are people about? What is their lifestyle like? What are they about? And then we try and meld all of these things together in a design. And at every point, you have to keep checking that everything you're doing is going towards that goal. And what happens so often with design is you get derailed. And it's really easy to get derailed because you get caught up in the minutia of design, in making sure that this toilet is working. And then before you know it, you're manipulating the spaces, and they're just like every other space, which is just like every other building. And that's why there's so much mediocrity out there.
Or we'll have people coming to us with a picture and saying, "Oh, I like this."
It's like
Or
a haircut.
liking
cutter.
doesn't really matter if you like that den. it may not work with the concept of your whole house. So
I can give you
there's
an example of that. We very early on, actually, the client in the Jaguar who pulled up in the house and hired me to redo a acre property across the street from the Playboy Mansion. I mean, big project, for a young guy. And she said to me, "Oh, and I really want to make sure that you use the doors and windows that my neighbor has down the street." And I looked at them, and they were conventional multi-light broken up French doors and windows, where they're multi-lights, where each door is broken up into a grid of small panes. And I said, "Well, why do you want those?" And she said, "Well, because I like them." And I said, "Well, God, that's very interesting, because you drive a very progressive car, your jewelry, your clothes, everything about you is progressive. Do you realize that the reason those doors and windows are the way they are is because when they were invented and made, they could only make glass that big? Don't you think they wanted to make glass bigger back then so you could really take in the outdoors?" She called me about 3 days later and said, "You know what? I don't like those doors and windows anymore."
Wow.
And we put in big sheets of glass to let in the outside. So, people don't even realize that their likes and dislikes can be manipulated based on their knowledge.
or what
And
they see.
and so
What they see,
we're constantly trying to.
Yeah, we try to tell clients not like sometimes they'll say, "Oh, should we send you, photos on?" And there's so many online ways now of looking. You type in interior design, there's a million photos that pop up, right? So clients are always saying, "Oh, should I send you our Pinterest board?" We're like, let us start,
Ouch.
and then let us start. And look, I'm on Pinterest all day,
And that's
every day, and I
okay.
love it. Like it's
And
amazing.
we like to see
tool.
what a client
Well,
likes.
it's like a vision
Yeah.
board.
It's
A
like a
vision
vision
board
board.
comes
That's
from an
okay.
essence and a feeling. So if you
Exactly.
can
Right.
get their feelings, then you can
And
run
that's
with
important
that. And
to
I
know
think it's
that.
very
we
important.
really care about our
Yeah.
clients.
Yeah, I
and
mean, God
they're the
forbid
ones
you
that are
put
going
all-
to live
Exactly.
in
That's
their
right.
environment.
Yeah.
But as Kevin said, it's all towards a common concept.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just because you like that picture and that picture and that picture, it may not all
Yeah, it might not
work.
be
And
cohesive.
people don't realize, when you put it all together, that what feels good to live in is something that is cohesive and balanced and harmonious.
And that's really interesting coming from somebody that a family that brings such an eclectic mixture of pieces together.
Right.
I'm not hearing you. I mean, somebody might be listening and thinking, "Oh, so it all has to be contemporary," but
No,
absolutely not.
absolutely
No.
not.
It's like clothing. It's everything. I have the same. I was a fashion designer after I was at art school, and I'm a painter. But there's just you just can't put your finger on it.
Right.
It either works or it doesn't. There's a palette.
Or a puzzle. I think of it
Yeah.
as a puzzle, and there are all of these pieces, and then the pieces fit within a puzzle, and it's interesting.
Now, have you
Once I'm sorry.
No, you carry on.
No, I was going to say, and once you understand the whys about all these pieces, like the French doors, for example, then you can make choices. Maybe in the front of your house, you want to use broken up doors and windows because you want to express some kind of degree of privacy. Whereas in the back, you might have created this amazing garden and you use sheets of glass to let in the air. Whereas somebody else might go, "Well, God, I would never do that. I would never change the style of doors and windows."
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
So we really try and design specifically for that client and that site.
Do you ever have clients that you get to a certain point with that just are absolutely, no, this is not what I wanted. It's not what I hired you
Yes.
for.
And then we kill them.
They have a little
sacrifice.
Yes,
Yes.
that 2-acre house is a little graveyard in the back. So
We honestly, we haven't killed anybody yet.
We're thinking of it.
Oh, that's funny. So so that's great. So what have you been working on recently?
Wow. One really interesting project is, I guess it's known as the Harvey Mudd Estate, right?
Yeah, so it was Harvey Mudd's estate. He built it for himself in 1929.
Wow.
Lived there with his family. It's about 11 or 12,000 square feet home up in Benedict Canyon, and it's truly remarkable. Like you walk in, It has the entryway. The ceilings are probably 30 feet tall, solid wood stained panels, including the ceiling, this gorgeous ornate staircase.
So it's amazing.
It's amazing. And then who lived there after? The actor from
Yeah, Martin from Mission Impossible.
Martin.
Debi
Oh
would know.
yeah.
And his wife.
Debi knows.
And his wife.
and his
Yeah.
wife.
Yeah.
And actually, our
Yeah.
client got to meet them
Marty.
up at the house before. So other people have lived there during the time, but our client reached out to them and said, "We've moved into this house. We know you live there. We'd love for you to come and see it before we start the remodel." We're not. It's all kind of cosmetic stuff we're
I
doing.
was just going
and
to
just
say,
it's,
yeah.
we're more.
No,
We're really
restoring it,
restoring the
actually.
home, like the stain in this entry. You can tell it was once gorgeous, and then some developers used to
Came in.
and they painted over the stain in kind of like a orange paint that kind of looks like wood. So we had to strip. It's been about a 3-month-long process
Landau.
total.
Oh, sorry,
Martin
Landau.
Landau.
But his
Exactly.
wife was in. Thanks, Richard.
His wife, too.
His wife was in
Yes.
Mission
The same-
Impossible.
right,
and
too.
so they
I
lived in
forgot
it-
her name, Richard.
They lived in it for a long time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they said they
okay,
were
very
describing
cool.
the
Okay.
parties and events they would have outside on the lawns and opening up there. They have this little breakfast area. He said that he used to sit right outside on a bench every morning with his coffee
fun
and
project.
newspaper. The home is really, really, really special. It's been really cool.
So
to
these are
be
new
part of.
clients. How far into the project are you right now?
About halfway.
Oh, you are halfway
yeah,
into
yeah.
it. Oh,
we
good.
started.
We're
You know,
doing a
Beautiful.
it's really restoration of it, refinishing the flooring, refinishing the walls, changing out tile here and there just because these developers came in and put stuff on that really did not match the authenticity of the home.
Making the
We're-
basement more functional.
Yeah.
Oh, there was
There
a
was
really
a-
funky basement.
Kind of
that-
looked a little like Disneyland with stone and
Funky doors.
we got it-
ripping out.
we're making it more original.
Gutted the
Oh,
kitchen.
Barbara
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 Bain.
Bain.
Barbara Bain.
Bain.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you. Sorry.
That's a fun project right now. We're doing a ground up construction in the flats of West Hollywood, where right now there's on every street you see 4 modern white boxes. And so we wanted to clearly people are attracted to that, but we wanted to infuse, the classical progression essence and this more creative, organic feel to a box. So it's a really nice corner property. The entire shape is kind of curved. So when you walk in, it feels not like a rectangular.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm
And it
going to
kind of
jump in there
wraps
for a
around.
second. The design, this curved and angular design, is really an expression of trying to fool someone who walks through the house into believing that the house and the property are a lot bigger than they really are. These are small rectilinear lots. People are putting rectilinear houses on them. You kind of walk in the front door and you get the entire picture. So the concept here was to try and create a much more sexy circulation throughout the project. You walk in, you cannot see what's going on. You have to walk kind of into a really cool entry that you can kind of absorb, and then you turn the corner and you meander through this property at angles instead of straight through. And
Yeah.
hopefully what happens is it'll just make it feel a lot more exciting,
Yeah.
larger, and so on. So that's the reason for the shapes.
And rich, warm materials mixed with modern, clean, beautiful.
Wow, they're lucky to have you.
Yeah. So I was going to ask Carolyn, when you are showing clients around and you're doing real estate, does anybody ever contact you knowing that you're part
Yes.
of this team and say, find me the property, I don't
And
care about the
take it
house,
over from
I want
Yes.
the right price, and I want you guys to put a house on it?
Yes. We
Fabulous.
do all of that. We also do our own development projects. We kind of cover. Also, I will get listings, and I usually go in and redecorate them.
Yeah, because you
I'll
let
bring
them
my
know
own
what you're all
material.
about.
I'll bring
Yeah.
my own furnishings. I'll
Yeah.
take stuff from home and stage
God.
homes and do all of it, because I just know the essence of what people walk into and how they feel, whether they're buying a house, building a house, living in a house. It's so, your environment is so much what fuels your soul.
And I have to say also that every time I've made a move, I've invited these guys over. Though I don't think you've been to my most recent place, Kevin.
Never
Carolyn
been
has.
invited.
No, yes, you have. But,
Don't
I'm
remember
sure my
being
mom
no, wait,
goes
invited.
in and starts moving
that
the
could be.
furniture around.
No, and the
because that's what
answer
they
is
do
yes.
at hotels.
Because your
go to
dad
hotels.
would go, yeah, I know, she does.
We redecorate
Every
hotel
single
rooms.
time you walk in, and it's all of a sudden, no, this should go here. The light is coming over here, so this chair should face this way. I love it. I always go, oh, it needs a Carolyn and Kevin touch. You know, they need to come in. I mean, where I'm at now, we discussed it when it was empty, and I didn't have a lot of choice of what was going where. But my very first apartment as a single woman, Kevin walked in. Do you remember that? And he went, move this. This is on the wrong side. You both just started moving furniture, and everything just changed. And you can take, my point is, we could take the smallest of space, and at this time it was about 500 square feet, and you can make it the most functional and still at the same time keep the authenticity of who I am,
Right.
you know, because you guys know me so well, and what my needs and my interests are, even in my tiny space. And I think that's so miraculous that you guys do that full circle, you know. And
We stayed at a hotel up the coast for about 3 or 4 nights, and we checked in and we walked in the room and we looked at each other and we go, this ain't gonna work. We literally moved all the furniture around. We put the bed on a different wall. We did it. We
Was this
completely.
what-
so you could get through the
this
4
for a
nights,
one-night
right?
stay?
No,
No,
it
4
was
nights.
for about
4 nights.
3 or
Okay.
4
Yeah,
nights,
yeah.
and the next day we go out and we go for a hike and we come back, and the housekeepers had been there from the hotel. They moved all the furniture back.
They
So we
did?
moved
So
it
we
again.
moved it again,
This went on for 4 days.
and
Oh
the
my
next day they
God.
moved it again.
Oh my
And-
God.
Wow.
That was funny. So
They
this
didn't
is
get
so
it.
funny. I do exactly the same. And
Yeah,
it's-
I'll move
I
stuff
am.
around.
I mean, I don't want anybody to come to my house and feng shui. Feng shui. It because it's like I don't want somebody saying put that there. My
No.
idea of design is so acute. It's like everything has a place,
Right.
and I know it flows.
Right.
I don't need somebody coming in from the outside and saying it's not flowing correctly.
Right.
Okay, we don't want to work for you.
No, you couldn't work for me. I'm too bossy. I
Yeah.
know exactly what I want.
Not working for you.
But I do the same. I go into a hotel. I haven't moved the bed because I'm usually alone and it's only for one night. But the chairs, the everything
So
that is
funny.
movable is usually moved.
Yeah, you guys did that when you sublet a place in New York for
yeah.
a long
Oh,
time,
boy,
for
we
like
did
9
a
months or whatever.
number of-
Yeah, you redid somebody's whole place.
A number of
My children actually, it's a game. I'll come home and they'll move the furniture an inch just to see if I notice, and
that's
I'm
me.
immediately I'm coming and going. What?
I would
weird?"
notice.
I
too.
can say.
You know that in your own home, I think. That's
I
funny.
know.
That's funny that they mess with you. How many projects can you guys take on at once, or how many are you working on right now?
We try not to take on more than we can pay attention to.
Okay.
So maybe 4 or 5 on the design board and 4 or 5 under construction.
Okay.
And how many staff do you have in your company? Would you say?
Well, there's a lot of
Well,
There's a lot of construction.
sub work.
There's a
Yeah,
lot of
they-
sub work.
depending.
Skylar does the plaster, the drywall, the
The
electrical.
tile work.
plumber.
Carolyn is good at digging.
So we have a bunch of different subcontractors that we use in the field. Most of these guys, my dad started working with them 18, 20 years ago, and so they're awesome.
So that's great. You have a trust with them.
Oh,
you,
yeah.
you can rely on them.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful.
And they're on all of our most of our projects at a time, and you call them up, you have an issue, they're there within 5 minutes because they want to keep our business. On the design front, it's really the 3 of us.
And then
I have-
draftsmen,
yeah, we have a-
assistants,
Yeah.
engineers.
But
Talking to your microphone.
in our office, it's really 3 of us, and then we outsource everything, which makes it really fun because it means that we have hands-on with every aspect of it. You know, we're not handing off our plans to guys in the office and then like, okay, you guys roll with it. It's really one of the three of us touches every aspect.
Well, and that's really
of
important when you have a
the
father
plan-
that
yeah.
designs things that builders can't read. So
Exactly.
keep it in-house.
As long as Skylar can understand the plans, we're all okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Because you can translate,
Yes.
right? That's basically a different language that you
Or
translate.
I just call him. I say, I don't understand this. How am I supposed to build this? I've learned a lot.
Should have been a doctor.
And you guys have 4 homes of your own, and you've each, I've been privileged enough to be in all 4 homes. One is still under construction, renovation, I should say. And they're also drastically different. And so can we talk about how when you walk into a space, you have to take, we touched on it a little bit, you have to take the history of that space, the block that it's on, the city that it's in,
The
and
year it
everything
was built, the original house that was there. We have about 4 years ago or so, we decided we wanted a mid-century modern. So we went, of course, to Palm Springs, where it's the capital of the mid-century modern, and found a fantastic
There you go. You got it.
house that was just bad enough, just our style, needed everything, and we restored it very much to its original character.
It's an amazing
Beautiful.
house. It's amazing. Probably one of your favorite spaces to be
Yeah,
in, I think.
that was really fun. And then, funnily enough, Skylar and her newlywed husband were looking for a house, and they found an
So we
authentic.
found this authentic Cliff May mid-century modern home, and when we first made the offer, we didn't even know it was Cliff May, who's a very well-known.
And if you don't know who Cliff May is, he was kind of the father of the modern ranch-style house.
Yes, and he has quite a few in Malibu, doesn't he?
He had
Yes.
some in Malibu,
Yes.
Brentwood, Palisades, all over.
And we didn't even know when we first found the house, and that was a really fun project because it's in a cul-de-sac with like 4 other Cliff Mays. And so I got to like go into our home had been renovated multiple times in the process. So when you walked into the house, all the bones were there, but you felt like you were walking into a home in like Lake Tahoe. There was like stone cascading down the fireplace and like orangey yellow wood. It was just very not mid-century feeling at all, but it was really cool because my neighbors' homes were completely authentic. So I got to go in and kind of experience that. And as a wedding present, my sister got me this Cliff May signed book, obviously not signed to me, but she found it online and it was signed.
Is your house in that book?
I don't think so.
He
I couldn't
may
find
not
it.
recognize it. Well, and the cool thing is that you guys could walk in and turn. I'm not sure that too many people would
Zach
be capable of
Zach thought
seeing
we were crazy.
Yeah, with what you did to that house.
Thought we
You should
were
see this
crazy.
house, Del. It is an amazing home what they did to it, and to have that foresight and vision, and I mean, I just don't think anybody else could do
And
that.
that's a perfect example. Skylar was the builder, but she was also the client for her own home.
Oh yeah,
And that home represents her and her husband.
Yes.
Very much so. You know, if it would have been done for someone else, there may have been slightly different elements within the Cliff May mid-century style, but it's so Skylar.
Our show's over almost. Okay, wait. But before we go, I want to ask you guys to talk a little bit about your website and some of the media and publications that you have done. And that way we can, our audience that's listening knows how they can get a hold of you, and they can see everything that we're talking about too.
We've been really fortunate this year. We've been featured in the LA Times a couple of times, Wall Street Journal, Open Houses, the TV show, a few other.
You have a whole visual tour
Yeah.
of your home Chateau Zoo.
Exactly.
Right?
And
Yes.
if you go onto our website, www.classicalprogression.com, you can kind of see all of the work that we have recently completed, our press, projects that we're going on, that we're currently working on, and our contact information.
Wonderful.
That's fantastic.
Thank you so much.
And what kind of advice would you give somebody who is looking to renovate their home and maybe they don't live here in the Los
Use
Angeles
a
area.
professional.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
That's good advice.
Less is more.
Yes.
Okay. And Kevin?
I would say come up with a cohesive, complete design, even if you can't afford to do it all at once. And then attack it at different stages. Because if you don't, the outcome is disastrous.
Okay, that's good advice.
Yeah,
That's
very good
really,
advice.
really sound advice.
Okay, so, well, I think we've covered everything for today.
And
Anything else, Debbie?
well, I want to thank you guys for. I know how busy you are, because anytime I'm with these guys, what happens is Carolyn's on her phone because she's talking to Skylar, and then it's going back and forth. Then they're texting. Then Kevin calls, and it's like, wait, hello, friend is here. But
really
it
bad.
is, it's I got to take this call. Oh, let me call you right back, and it just goes on and on like that. So
It's funny when I'm like, sorry, the only call that matters is when my parents call, because I don't know if it's a personal call or a work call. So I
yeah,
always
so
have
to
take
differentiate.
it.
And I just, yes, and I love the fact that you haven't looked at your phone in an hour. So I thank you for that. And now, I love you guys. So thank you very much for
Thank you
sharing
so
Thanks
much for
so
coming.
your
much for
wonderful
having us.
talents with
Yeah,
us.
this
Thank
is
you.
awesome.
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
So, thanks everybody.
Yes.
We're going to be back
Tune in
next
next
week with a
week.
new show, and we appreciate you telling your friends that Del and Debbie's Mind, Body, and Soul. We're here every Tuesday
Yeah.
Pacific time from 2 to 3. Thanks so much. Thank you
Thank you.
guys.
See you
Thank
next
you.
week.
Bye everybody.
Bye-bye.
When we move, well, you already know. So just imagine,